Hello, welcome everyone to this VaultSpeed areto webinar. Today we'll be discussing a bit more about POC, MVP. What are they? Why would an MVP beat a POC? So that's a bit the content of today. With me here today, I have Daniel Olsberg from Areto Consulting out of Germany. So welcome, Daniel.
Thank you, Jonas.
Yeah. The for the audience, maybe it's an interesting idea if we quickly introduce ourselves so they know who's talking to them. And I'll give you the honors to start first.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Daniel Olsberg. I've been working for Areto for 7 years. Areto is a company based in Europe. We've got 180 employees. We've been around since 2007, and all we do is data analytics on SQL type of sources, on SAP type of sources. And what we usually do is we talk about the customer's business strategy. We do data strategy. We find use cases. We then build up a platform with the right technology like VaultSpeed. And then we go into implementation, training, and maintenance and operations. So my job at Areto is to bring excellent partners like VaultSpeed together with fantastic clients like you, and then with super consultants. So that's a win.
All right,
Thank you.
cool. Myself, my name is Jonas or Jonas, whichever language people prefer or whichever pronunciation. I work for VaultSpeed since 6 years, but I have a history in data warehousing myself, doing a lot of consulting on BI, data warehousing, data vault projects as well. And after that, almost 10 years in consulting, I joined VaultSpeed and started to do the product marketing for VaultSpeed. Hence why I'm here today with Daniel explaining how we can make this data industry work better, work faster, and bring more value. I think speaking about value, that's a bit the topic of today, Daniel. I know that Areto has a very strong opinion on how you should start projects or how you should go about delivering those first tangible pieces of business value to your organization. And that's a bit the topic of today. So we will be venturing through what is a proof of concept, what is a minimum viable product. Maybe Daniel, from your experience, you can explain a bit more about indeed what is for you a POC and what then is an MVP.
Thank you. We have a lot. If you've been around in this industry for 1 or 2 days, you've seen that most people want to make sure that a concept or a technology works. So what often happens is we go into proofs of concept or proof of technology to see that part A works with part B. So we have a technical solution just to see things work. Then we often go into a piloting, and then we go into production. In the past, what we've been doing for the last couple of years is we've been skipping the POC or POT, and we've gone into an MVP, a minimal viable product. So from day one, we define what a business use case is and how to get business value out of it. Then we build up the platform because we know working with tools like Vaults, we know they work. We don't have to prove that they work. That's been proven over time and time again. So what we have to do is prove the value of using VaultSpeed and automation within the projects based on real life business value. So we usually define with our clients what a good solution to start is, and it really works out well. So we have to start thinking about what is business analysis and how do we build up a use case. We usually work in an agile way, so we have then the ability to bring our agile framework into the project, and then we use the MVP to build up business value and also to build up communication so that the clients understand what we're doing, or what we're talking about is we're building up communication systems based on data. And we want to basically help people have I always say, because I'm a bit flippant, we want people to have time to read newspapers and drink coffee or tea. So they're not bringing data together and doing every day, doing a lot of manual jobs. We want to set up an environment which works every day automatically so that people have time to perform analysis, to bring in new amounts of data, to keep everything nice and structured and governed, to make things easy and repeatable. And that's something which we see the MVP is the diving board into that vast pool of building up knowledge, communication, and shared values around data within the company.
Okay, great. So there are a few differences that you already highlighted, I think. A question that I hear a lot is since you're doing an MVP, so in a way you're also delivering everything. You need to make sure that everything works. You already know it. But would you say that an MVP is larger than a POC in a way? So it encapsulates all the end products you would get from a POT, POC, PO, XYZ, whatever?
Yes and no. If we look at a POC as a part of a POC, a pilot, a production, and we look at it as three separate parts of the same coin, three-sided coin or triangle, we see with an MVP, we're skipping the first two parts. And actually the third part as well. So what we're doing is we've got the technology which is in place. We don't have to do a pilot because we've already proven that it works together in the MVP. So looking at it that way, you're faster to getting value out of your solution with an MVP than you are with just doing a POC. The other thing, which is something in this day and age of infrastructure, is by the MVP, we already set up the infrastructure to work in production. So we don't have to revamp, we don't have to move things around, we don't have to rebuild things. It's not a single serving solution. It's a solution which will keep giving and giving if you do an MVP. So to start the MVP, sometimes it's a bit longer in the beginning because we're talking about what and how do we prove business value rather than doing technical, does part A talk to part B, talk to part C. So there's a slight difference there.
So you have to go and talk straight to business owners, people who actually you want to deliver that value to, right?
And if you look at how a normal project cycle works, we're already talking to business owners because they're involved in what type of platform, what type of information platform they want to have. So they already have ideas in their minds, which they're about what they want to implement. And so we can basically take one or two or three of those ideas, build the use cases around that, and then be able to implement them via the MVP. So it's a bit more conversation in the beginning because we're actually talking about structures. What are definitions of structures, of time, of client, of product? What are the measures which they want to use? Are there any differences within the company which we have to iron out, which typically you would ignore in the POC? But since most clients have many systems and unfortunately many definitions of the same thing, and they don't necessarily know which definition they want to use themselves, it's a bit more of communication and discussion, and then we help organize that as part of our data strategy for that with them.
Yeah. So that also means that it doesn't necessarily take longer. It could take a bit longer, but in a way you get to the point of value faster. In a way, you're talking to all stakeholders much faster or simultaneously, instead as with a POT or a POC, you first talk to the IT department alone.
And we found that, and we found that talking to the IT department is very important because they usually host the infrastructure, but they're not necessarily the ones talking to the line of business and knowing exactly which use cases are necessary. They're told, oh, we will have to do BI, or we have to do data science, or we have to do some sort of marketing campaign. And with an MVP, we're bringing those use cases in and talking to the business users, as well as including there to make sure that the platform works, to make sure who's responsible for what and how the development is and done. And in my experience, having the line of business there from a very early day means we have a much, much stronger platform, stronger argumentation, because it's people are cooperating within their own company in order to get something done and having the ability to see who is responsible for which part of that puzzle.
Yeah, and at the end of the process, you have derived some value because you've built it for the people who define the value.
Yeah.
Talking about defining business value, what is it to you? How would you define it?
For me, something which makes people's lives easier, the ability to communicate information across an organization, and in my flippant way, something which lets people get home quicker something which saves money, something which saves time, something which brings clarity. These are all part of business value. And it depends where you're at. Sometimes one of the things I like asking clients is, how do you define success? How do you measure it? And just by having these conversations, it makes people think about, what are my measures? What are my structures? How am I communicating it? And how can I work together on these things? And that, for me, is business value. And if I can help somebody know what their sales cycle is going to be, or how to improve quality in production, or how to improve logistics, I'm very happy basically using data to make people's lives better. And that usually saves time and money. So shareholder value or stakeholder value.
All right. Shall we do a quick demo on how this would usually work?
Sure.
I remember you had some questions for me last week.
Yeah, what we were talking about is, I'm working with a client or a company that sells all kinds of vehicles. So basically anything which is street legal, which you can drive. And we'd like to see what our current inventory is. And we'd also like to see who's been buying what. So we have a simple dashboard that we can use as actual data for things like marketing, and for checking our inventory level, our liquidity, and seeing what we have to order and bring into our warehouses.
Okay. I have been working on this, Daniel, and I'll share my screen just to show you what I've been doing, just like in any other regular Teams or Zoom meeting. So I'm not sure if the screen is being shared yet.
Not yet.
If the technical support could give me a ping, that would surely help. Yes, it's been shared. What I've been doing, Daniel, is I've been modeling out this business of yours as you explained it, right? You have customers in your organization. You have products that you sell those products to your customers in your different dealerships or shops. And then, of course, in those shops, there is inventory being held. So inventory of a certain product being held in every single one of your dealerships. And that's a bit the business model that you guys are working with, right?
Can you explain to me what the different icons mean?
So the icons this is Data Vault methodology. I could highly recommend you some books, but the main idea is that the blue ones represent your key business concepts. Oops.
Okay.
I'll try not to zoom out too fast. So your key business concepts exactly being these customers, products, inventory items, and shops. The gray ones, they're called links. They represent relationships between those blue little icons. And then the yellow ones is where all the descriptive data on a certain business concept is being stored. So for example, all the data about customers, that's being stored either in one or two different satellites, depending on how many incoming sources, how you wanted the data to be split, and so on.
Cool. We had one issue where, since we have clients, and some of our clients or some of our customers are also employees, and because of privacy and because of HR, we'd like to separate those out into two different areas so that we can see who are our employees and who are our customers. Is that possible here?
Sure. I did indeed get that requirement from you.
Okay.
And I saw in your source that they threw that all into one big file. Customer and employee data was just stored under one concept. So we see that a lot. Sources don't necessarily represent the data in a way that you would think it is represented, but I splitted those things out into what we see, the customer object and the employee object on itself. The one thing that the source did provide was an easy attribute on which I could actually filter to see whether someone was an employee or a customer. So I added those expressions in, and that should direct the data into the correct business concept, into the correct little blue table that you had there on the previous screen. Now, having done that, I'll quickly show you my first draft of our little dashboard here. So you can see that, all the people who bought stuff, that's the first requirement, and then also the current inventory that is being held.
I see a small problem here. For compliance issues, I can't be seen here, or employees can't be seen
Oh,
as purchasing things. Mask that, because I'm going to get into big problems with my data protection officer. We have that's, and my colleagues figure out that I've got a motorcycle. There'll be also problems with my insurance. So we've got to be able to cloak that really quickly before this goes into production.
okay, yeah, I get your fear. Congrats on the new motorcycles, by the way. Looks like good stuff. No,
It's a midlife crisis. What can I say?
Don't worry, but I'll try to. What would help here? Do
You
I
have to
just
do
need
that by
to?
hand, or how can you cloak that, or do you have to do it manually to write SQLs with case statements?
No, what we could do, yeah, either the solution is to delete the employee data from this overview altogether, but that might give
Wouldn't
you
that be a
issues
problem with
with.
my inventory? Because that means I wouldn't see which part of my inventory you
Yeah,
can
and at the
control.
same time, it would probably give you a bad representation of your sales numbers. Looking from the amount of motorcycles you bought, that might have a decent impact. So I think it's better, Daniel,
Yeah.
if we try to anonymize this data. So we set it up in a way that you still have the records, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't see your name. Would that
Okay.
help?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be very good. And I can do this automatically, or do I have to do this line by line in my source data?
The only thing you have to explain me here is that, for example, and I'm going to have a look at the exact data set where this came from. So I think it was stored in a satellite since it's descriptive data.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our customer data. From these fields here, I see first name, last name, gender. Would it be okay if I flag those with a specific signature? We call
And
this.
what about birth date?
That's an option, but it might be interesting to calculate like the ages of people
Okay.
that visit your shop. Let's keep that one for now, and if you see any issues with it later, we can still fix it
Okay.
quite easily. And then last name as well. Here
Mm-hmm.
we go. Ghost them should work. So I'm gonna save this classification of the attributes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm
And
gonna
so
do now.
has this manipulated my data at all, or how does this
No,
work?
it will not have manipulated your data, but it will have. So the actual source data is still there, it still exists, but I've added a
Okay.
layer on top.
Okay.
So the raw data is there, and it's
Mm-hmm.
only accessible by a few people with the
Okay.
right keys in their hands. So that's a secured layer. Only the people with access can get into that.
So I'm just running this based off the metadata, so none of my data is being pushed through here. It's all staying.
No, absolutely not. So what I've done now, I've deployed this change, and I do hope that by having done this, okay, there you go. What
That's
I've done
great.
now is I deployed the change, and that the fields that we indicated as being, where we wanted to ghost the employees have been hashed. So we just made them unreadable, but you still have the record, and you can still see that somebody, probably an employee, BMW R1200, whatever
Okay.
that is. I'm not that into motorcycles, but that's the idea. So would this fix your problem?
That's wonderful. And it went really quickly and really easily. That's great, Jonas. Thank you.
Okay, cool. No worries. Happy to help. And I think with that, Daniel, this was like a quick and easy demonstration of what business value really is, or what do you think?
I think it's wonderful that we can do these things so quickly and so easily, and also change things. I remember in the bad old days when we had changes, we had to refactor everything, and it was a lot of work, and a lot of processes were built on that. And it seems with VaultSpeed that we can change things easily and in a really agile manner, so that we can keep adding business value without having to rebuild the house. So we have a strong foundation which we can add to and change to without having to knock down the whole warehouse, which is wonderful. This is really good stuff.
And isn't that part of the definition of an MVP? You start out with something and you can alter it really quickly, you can expand it and scale it really quickly.
Yes, and it goes back to the only constant in life is change. And if we think about design thinking, almost everything we do is a prototype, because things keep changing, and be able to deal with change in an easy way is something which is really important for us to be able to do that, because business changes every day. We have changes in laws, we have changes in customers, we have new products. So being able to do this really provides value from day one, and to change it easily without having to get really technical and code and use the keyboard to really do things. It's phenomenal because it's quick, it's easy, it's simple, and you don't have to be a super coder to do that. You can use this templating approach, this automation approach to get things done. And that provides business value, saving time, saving money, and letting people get home earlier to spend time with their friends and family is basically what it's all about. And making sure that the clients can actually get business value out of these infrastructures and these ways of doing it. So it's methodology and technology equals success.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that if you can prove value to a business user that quickly, he's probably gonna want you to keep doing this, right? Because then if business gets return from their investment, their time investment in explaining what it is they want, and they see the return, and you can fix their problems more quickly than they were used to. I think that's a great way to start out and venture into the next 20, 100, 200 use cases, let's say, right?
Exactly. It's the start small, think big. It's having a good backlog, a good PO to organize the backlog. Because what we're basically is we're building data platforms as communication platforms, and it should be additive. And basically part A should be able to talk to part B so that we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. And to do this with an easy to use graphic interface with a good database in the background makes everybody's life much, much easier.
Yeah, that brings us to a very nice conclusion. I don't know if there's any questions from the audience. We should be able to see that pop up into the screen. However, in the meantime, Daniel, it's maybe interesting to talk about this specific offer that you guys have put together with VaultSpeed also to help people get to something like this.
We have a special offer, which basically it's a mixture between workshops and implementation. And this is then backed by VaultSpeed and by other partners. So basically what we do is we have a special offer, which if you have questions, talk to me about setting up a shorter period of time to use the infrastructure, as well as having our support at a special price from the webinar. We do this on an individual basis. So if you want, ping me. You've got my contacts via LinkedIn, and I will set you up with sales or our sales team in order to support you through this environment. What we usually do is we have a small workshop to define what your data strategy is. And from there, we have workshops to see what the use case is, if we have one or many, for the minimal viable product. So we have a definition of ready and a definition of done so that we can work along this. And then we also provide on-the-job training for the clients so that they're able to then use the system after we've gone off and gone to different environments. So it's basically, give a person a fish and they eat forever, rather than teach a person to fish and they eat forever, rather than giving a person a fish and they eat once. So we have that know-how transfer part of this in order to spread the good news within the client base. So it's, call me is what I would say.
Sounds really interesting. All right. Thanks a lot for having this conversation with me. I hope that the audience liked it a lot. Also, the people watching it later on, it will be posted online, I think. So thanks, Daniel.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. I look forward to our next webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do one again real soon.
Perfect.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.